Hello and welcome to A Slice of Pie. Alright, so normally I would add the tagline, the weekly news-ish show that we do on this channel. But that's kind of leaning into the first announcement. This show is actually going to a bi-weekly format. The reason for it is because I can actually split tech and game news into their own show once a month and actually have a lot more to talk about and not have to kind of just, add some fluff in there. But more importantly, it gives me a bit more time to actually focus on videos that are not this. You see, because I'm doing this weekly, I'm essentially giving myself an excuse to say, hey, I put out a video, so I don't have to do anything else. And it's a mental trick, but I'm actually going to attempt to put out a video once a week or more, and essentially only 2 of the ones out of the month cannot be this content. So I should be able to diversify and do some different things. In fact, actually this weekend, I've got a lot planned, but I'm gonna have to do a lot of it tomorrow. I digress though. There's just so much going on. In fact, actually Nova Build Part 4, how we got to this point, that will be out on Wednesday. Wednesday is actually going to be my consistent upload day. I'm going to try to hit Wednesday of every week. So no more Friday, because Friday's always up in the air with my job. Wednesday seems to be the one day a week that I consistently have off. So I'm going to take advantage of that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the game news for the week. Game news. All right, so what's happened this week? Well, we had the Switch Lite come out last week, and now that it's in everybody's hands, it's a good time to see how it actually works. I personally actually did get my hands on one to just kind of feel around. I didn't want to buy one since I actually already have an original Switch, and well, for the most part, there's no reason for me to upgrade. That being said, the new Switch is very, very light, very true to its name as the Switch Lite. So, should you get it? Well, it all depends. If you want TV play, no. If you're worried about Joy-Con drift, you might want to hold off. A couple of Switch Lites apparently were defective because they were using Joy-Con parts in their controller. Now, how many is unknown, and it does seem like this is one of those things that like one person has really come forward with it, or a few people, and it's very hard to validate whether or not it's an actual problem. It could be a problem, or it could not. We have to wait and see. But overall, the Switch Lite is a very competent handheld to replace the Nintendo 3DS, which had its own issues with the L&R buttons and hinges. So maybe portable tech is always sort of faulty, but yeah, Joy-Con drift still might be an issue. Mario Kart Tour came out on cell phones recently, and it's pretty fun actually. If you're used to drifting around constantly, which that's like my thing, it's an enjoyable experience. There are a handful of courses, and I have seen a lot of repeat courses in this first batch, but it's not an unpleasant game to play. The issue are the microtransactions, because there are a lot of them. Not only is there a subscription service that costs $5.99 a month for you to subscribe to, there's also loot boxes and like a whole gem currency to pay for those loot boxes, which yeah, it really does kind of suck. That being said, you do get a 14-day free trial of the Gold Pass if you want it. I personally have been playing enough, and I did kind of cancel my ESO subscription, so maybe, I don't know. I'll try it out, see how it works, and I will probably talk about it on this YouTube channel at some other point, specifically as a review for the game. Alright, and literally that's it. Just 2 stories and game news. Let's go on to the tech news. This is why I'm moving to a bi-weekly format. Tech news! Tech news. Tech news. What's going on this week? Well, there is actually an RX 5700 XT Liquid Devil being released by Power Color. Now, they are the ones who actually do the Red Devil line, and are actually pretty well known as they support the AMD graphics cards quite a bit. And their graphics cards are starting to actually, you know, take off in that market. That being said, it does look like it's an EK water block with the Power Devil or Power Color Liquid Devil branding, which is actually completely new. It looks awesome, and if it's as cost effective to buy that card plus a water block, I would buy that card. But I did notice that I have slightly different pricing, so it might be actually cheaper for me to do it from scratch. It's probably because I buy so much from EK that they're just like, here you go. So if the card itself is $400 plus $100, it would make sense, because then I wouldn't have to import it and put it on the card. But if it's $400 plus $150, then I actually break even if I just bought the parts myself. So could be cool though. That being said, there really isn't much to gain from liquid cooling other than the temps being generally lower and the noise of the card being lower. The 1900 megahertz that the thing was capable of hitting really is pretty much like its upper limit, and AMD did a really good job of actually like squeezing all of the performance out of the card so that overclockers didn't have to, which is a huge change because many of us in the enthusiast market are used to having to squeeze every little bit of performance out of these cards. But speaking of graphic cards and liquid cooling, I actually kind of want to talk about something that's a bit interesting. So I actually have both a GTX 1080 and I had a Vega 64 before I killed it. The Vega 64 was underwater, and honestly, I loved it as a card. Like, I really didn't have very many opportunities to really boggle it down. One time I actually did push it to its upper limits was when I ran 3 monitors at 1440p and a game across all of them. That's a lot to ask for a card to do, and to be completely honest, if I just lowered the resolution to like 2 monitors wide, which would be about the same resolution as an ultra wide, it was still fine. This card, the 1080, I didn't realize how many features of the Vega I am missing. So one thing that the Vega does incredibly well that the 1080 does not is rendering. You see, I actually use not After Effects. I use Premiere to edit these videos, and normally Premiere is actually more dependent on NVIDIA hardware. For some unknown reason though, the 1080's CUDA cores, is like the error that pops up, is not supported by this version of Premiere, which means I would have to have a 20 series card in here to gain the benefits. Where my Vega didn't ever give me an error message whatsoever and actually rendered out faster. Now, I know hardware accelerated rendering is really dependent more on your CPU than your GPU, but the CPU is the same and the render times went up. And that's kind of sucky. Which is one of the reasons why I'm looking at getting an RX 5700, because it does seem that those price to performance wise are a little bit better, and AMD's hybrid RDNA approach may yield better results. I would have gotten another Vega 64 if it weren't for the fact that right now they are $600 brand new, which is close to their launch price. They went down and now they're back up. And there's no reason for me to buy a $600 graphics card that's 22% slower than a brand new $400 graphics card. And there's no reason for me to buy an RTX card because I really don't want to pay $800 for an RTX 2080 Super just to rip off the shroud and liquid cool it for another $100. So I'd end up with like $1,000 graphics card setup, and I don't want to do that. I don't care to spend that much money on a single piece of hardware that I might destroy. So we're gonna actually kind of talk about another tech YouTube channel. About 22 minutes ago from the point that I am recording this video, Linus Tech Tips did a video on the Epic Rome processors. That is the 64 core, 128 thread processor. And holy cow, they decided to throw Cinebench at it and Blender at it, and I can't spare that $7,000, but that's impressive. They were able to get a Cinebench score higher than the Xeon Platinums, 2 of them in one system, and they also were able to render, like they had to run 2 Blender renders to actually saturate all of the threads because Blender can only use half of them. So pretty cool stuff. I am dropping a link to the video. I'm not going to explain the whole thing because, yeah, it's down in the description. Go ahead and watch it because as server hardware goes, this is actually really exciting because the way AMD does things is they actually have the Threadripper line, which is a hybrid between their server and their consumer processors. So if we get a Threadripper that reaps some of these benefits, yes, absolutely. As I said, I'm not going to talk about all of it here. There's a lot about those processors that he talks about, and he had to like circumvent AMD to get them. So it was actually kind of funny to see him actually talk so favorably about something that he actually had to work to get. Knowing him, one of his servers are probably going to end up running them if the benefit is really as great as he's talking about. Now, finally, the last bit of graphics card news. So this one's a bit complicated. NVIDIA is planning on releasing a 1660 Super and a 1616 Ti Super to fight a rumored RX 5600 XT and 5600X, or 5600. But remember, we have rumors of a 5800 XT and a 5800. So right now, even I'm confused. Is AMD releasing a lower end product or a higher end product? The liquid cooled Liquid Devil implies that no, because their partners are making liquid cooled versions of the 5700 XT, that they aren't making a 5800, but they could be still making a 5800, and the 5700 is just so popular that people are making more and more aftermarket coolers for it. And then you have NVIDIA over here who's catering to the low end and then also creating cards with no RT, like no ray tracing, and yet they said it was stupid to buy a card without ray tracing. What is going on in the GPU market right now? NVIDIA is getting sloppy and AMD is doing whatever they're doing and none of it makes sense. And that was the tech news. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, you can leave a like, comment, subscribe. Next week, we will not be doing this show, but then 2 weeks from now, we will be doing a show specifically focused on gaming, and then 4 weeks from now on tech. Thank you guys again. Wolfie out.